And then we were just talking about real estate. I was telling him kind of my goals and my dreams with it. And he goes, it just takes a specific kind of person to get into real estate. And, I'm not sure if you have it. And he was kind of like laughing during it. But then he goes, I probably give you a year or so, and then I think you'll find the next thing. And I remember kind of having that like Michael Jordan moment of like, oh, this person said this about me. I'm going to do everything I can to prove them wrong.
Welcome back to the Ministry to Marketplace podcast. Today we are sitting down with Christian Fussell, who tells us his story of going from youth ministry vibes guy to one of the top performing real estate agents in DFW. He has an amazing story, and I think you're going to be really encouraged by it. So without further ado, here's our conversation with Christian Fussell. Well, dude, welcome. Thanks for sitting down.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. I'm super stoked.
This has been a really fun project to walk with people and kind of hear their story, because I think that the more I talk to people, the more I realize there's a lot of folks in this boat, a lot of folks who started off in ministry and then at some point transitioned into the marketplace, and just that whole journey, that whole story can be really daunting for a lot of people. So first things first, I'm going to ask you this. How did you actually get into ministry initially?
So I would honestly say the same way that I got into real estate. Like I kind of stumbled my way. So my family were Christians, what I've heard they're called. They go to church on Christmas and Easter. And God bless them. But we didn't really grow up in like a household that was, very traditionally, Jesus following.
Yeah.
And they're not horrible people, but we just didn't, church just wasn't a thing. So whenever I got to high school, I had some friends who just invited me on a random Wednesday night. And dude, just from like that service on, I was so bought in. Like I mean, I was the dude who was carrying his Bible around to every single function I could. If it's like in the hallways at school, I was the one who was like just dishing out the invite cards to everybody. Like I was the Jesus freak dude. And I don't know if I could tell you why. Maybe I think I felt a lot of purpose in that. And I didn't really, up to that point, which I was 15, 16, up to that point, I didn't really, like some of my friends had these goals for colleges and they were smarter if it's engineering, construction, whatever. I'm 5'10", 5'11", so it's like I wasn't going to play sports. And I kind of just didn't really have direction in my life for just what I wanted to do past high school and past college. Yeah. So this gave me purpose, and I felt very accepted, and I ended up befriending the youth pastor that night, and he was a mentor for me for years and kind of took me under his wing and father figure even. So how I got into ministry is the church that gave my life to the Lord at had a leadership school to train and send out pastors, worship leaders, mission, all the stuff. And it was partnered with SAGU, Southwestern Assemblies of God, in Waxahachie. So it was honestly just the natural progression of, I knew I wanted to do this. And I had like a moment going into my junior year of high school in a summer camp where I felt like, hey, I think I'm called into ministry. Looking back now, I didn't really know it. I couldn't tell you what I really felt or knew. All I could tell you, I knew I wanted to do church. And I knew I wanted to preach and pastor, and I feel like I have always had a soft spot in my heart for just people. And so I went to the ministry school, did all 4 years there, and then graduated in 2017. I ended up actually going on staff with the church as I would say an associate youth pastor. Like we had the youth pastor and then this other guy who was like incredible, one of my closest friends, and then I went on staff as like the third associate guy of the youth ministry,
like assistant to the regional manager.
Dude,
type of deal.
I'm trying to think of what my title was. It was like essentially it was like vibes guy, but it was like student life pastor. So what I was in charge of was like discipleship and just trying to get people into church and get them to know Jesus closer. And so I ended up going on staff February of that year, which was like a couple months before I graduated.
Dude, what's so funny about that is whether people articulate this or not, every church has a vibes guy. You know
For
what I
sure.
mean?
Yeah, it's the loudest person in
Every
the room, and that's me.
I feel like every student ministry has that guy. It's like, oh, dude, like people just want to be around him. He just sets a really fun tone. Dude, that's hilarious.
Typically,
I
a
was
person
never.
with long hair.
Yeah,
Which
yeah, yeah, totally.
whenever I was there, my hair was down to here. It's there's always that guy.
That's so funny, man. Okay, so you kind of stumble into ministry. I'm a big believer that there's very rarely the people who wake up and they just think, "Hey, I would really like to completely change my career today. I'd really like to do the hard work of a career change." Most of the time there is a catalyst. Most of the time there is a moment that makes someone say, "Oh, it's time for a switch." What was that moment for you?
That's I love that thought. I would say a couple. I would say a couple different things. One, I um I remember my first. So my to backtrack, my dad is a businessman. He's been in the car dealership business, and then he's been in like the 18-wheeler truck and trailer. So my whole life, he was like business guy.
Yeah.
So I think that that's kind of just my family lineage too. So
Mm.
I remember even in college feeling like interested in business. And again, I didn't even know what
Yeah.
that meant. Like I would tell
Yeah.
mentors, yeah, I want to do business or be in business. And I didn't know what that meant. I think I just had that itch. And
Yeah.
so I tie that back to I remember it was like March of 2017 or 18 and I preached my first sermon
Mm.
ever. And man, for me, it was such a big thing because I wrote down, I still have the journal somewhere of like goals and dreams and things I was praying about, and two of them were to be on staff as the associate youth pastor, and then to preach a sermon at the youth ministry. So I remember preaching that sermon and it just being, such a euphoric, not might not be the best word, but such a big, intense, and emotional night. And I remember getting back to my office at the church and sitting down and just having a freak out moment of
Mm.
like, oh, and at this point I was 21, 22. I was like, oh, these are the two biggest things I've wanted to do with my life. I've done both of them now. What
Yeah.
the heck do I do now? So I think I had a little bit of a freak out moment where I was like, oh gosh, I don't know if I want to do this whole youth pastor thing for forever. I can't be the vibes guy whenever I'm 40, hopefully having a family. You can't be the vibes guy at youth ministry. Um, and then the biggest catalyst for me was I ended up getting let go from that church that fall. So for
Mm.
me, that was kind of like it was just a 180 for my life. I really thought I was going to do the church thing for my whole entire life. End up planning a church and just kind of follow the natural progression of a pastor. And so
Yeah.
that was the biggest catalyst, but the internal catalyst happened before that.
Yeah.
And I look back now, 30 years old, 10 years, 7 years past that moment, and man, for me it was like it was a blessing. Like it was a good thing that didn't happen for
Mm.
me, in my personal opinion. And I'm sure we'll dive into why in a bit, but yeah, I would say I had two catalyst moments, and one of them was unfortunately, it was a forced catalyst from my actions.
Yeah. So I feel like when people transition from ministry, there is the group who wake up and they think, you know what, either for financial reasons, I'm going to leave, or for calling reasons, I'm going to, go elsewhere. But there are those who have to transition out of ministry because they're kind of forced to, right? Either
Yep.
they get fired or they're laid off or whatever it is.
Yeah.
When you get that news and you think, okay, I don't work at this church anymore, what do you
Yeah.
do? Like what do you do first?
Gosh, dude. I'm just like reliving that moment. It was so intense. Um, I to tell you the truth, like it's so situation. I don't know. Like in all
Mm,
honesty, what I'll tell you what I did
yeah.
is I freaked out. I was just like, what is going on? What's going to happen with my life? I thought this route was where I was going to go for the past 8 years of my life, and that path is now not a path anymore.
Mm,
So I just start thinking about what do I do next. And I remember I still have this note in my journal, and this will tie into how I got into real estate actually. But I had this note in my journal of like 8 things that I was like, these are the 8 ideas I have of what to do. I remember whenever I immediately got let go and that chapter closed, dude, I just called a couple people. I think it was on a Monday or Tuesday that happened. Wednesday, I went up to this like big brother mentor of mine. His name's Will Perry, and went up to he's a youth pastor up in Frisco. So I went to go attend his youth service, and dude, I just told him everything and told him what had happened, and had a conversation with a trusted person. And he
yeah.
didn't tell me I should go this direction or that direction. All he said to me is, he's like, you're gonna make it. And so I
Mm,
felt like for me, being able to voice just some of the fears and anxieties in my head and in my heart in that moment with an extremely trusted person was such a good thing for me. That didn't alleviate them. They
yeah,
came
totally.
in heavy waves following that. But I think I stuck. I kept my mind on that of like, you're gonna make it. And I remember on my exit interview, the senior pastor sent me a text after, and he said, blah 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 blah. You can get the healing. I believe in you. You can do it. And so
Mm,
I had people in my corner who were encouraging me, saying, "You can do it. This is gonna be okay. You're gonna end up being okay. This is gonna be a blessing." So, to answer your question, what do you do whenever that chapter closes early in your mind? Um, I think you immediately go and find a trusted person
mm,
to process things with, share your thoughts with, and let them speak into your life.
yeah. Because we're friends, I've heard this story, but I remember you telling me once that during this time you get fired, you're trying to figure out what's next. You're standing in line at a coffee shop,
Oh yeah,
and this dude just walks up behind you and says, "You need a job?" Like,
yeah,
is that
yeah,
how it happened?
yeah. So it was like an hour after I told you about that list of 8 things, and 7 of the 8 things were running. To be honest, from you, it just
Oh, no
running.
way.
If it was intern at this church I used to intern at in Ohio, if it was moving back to Nairobi, Kenya, if it was like going to join a church in New York, it was just all of these things that were running. And the last thing was to work at this coffee shop that I had worked at before I had gotten this job. I had known the owner super well. His name's Chris, and that was one of the 8 things. So I actually went to that coffee shop after I wrote that down, and dude, I had nothing to do. I think I took the I think I took the Strength Finders test like 5 times
Oh yeah, yeah.
after I got let go, just because I had nothing. I had no work to do. Like I had no job, and so I would go to this coffee shop just to read or to journal. And I
Yeah.
remember standing, and dude, I'm like, I'm telling you, I can feel it now. I just am at the lowest moment in life, and I'm slouched over. I'm in this coffee shop line, and Chris, the owner, he was there, and he had heard about all what had happened, and he just comes up to me and he puts his arm around me, and he goes, "Hey," he called me Fussy, and he goes, "Hey, Fussy, I love you first off," and he goes, "Do you need a job?" And I looked at him, I started getting tears in my eyes, and I was like, you have no idea. Like,
Yeah.
I was just praying about this. And he goes, I was like, yeah, I do. And so he literally walks me behind the bar, talks to the manager, and says, hey, Christian is now an employee here. Schedule out his training to be a barista at this coffee shop. Um, Dude, I didn't do anything for that. Like I
Yeah.
had a great relationship with him. At the end of the day, I believe that was just God and His guidance and using someone to really answer a prayer for me. And it actually ended up that guy, Chris, I met with 3 months later and just asked him what I should do. And if he told me I should be a firefighter, I would be a firefighter on this call right now. Like I was in a moment where I was like, dude, I'll do whatever anyone tells me to do. I have no idea what I want to do with my life. And he told me he told me you should get in real estate. And so immediately after that, I started getting my license, and rest is kind of still playing out.
That's amazing. I mean, so I was about to ask you, like, what prompted real estate out of all the directions that you could have gone, out of all the jobs that you could have taken. So that was it. It was a trusted mentor who said, I think that you would be great at this.
Yeah, it was. And like, dude, I'm just a big believer that and I was talking to someone about this actually yesterday. If you just kind of like share where you're at in life and share your thoughts and you just tell people, I think that just opens doors for God to use, that person or that friendship to connect you to the next thing.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's like I just shared, Chris knew about it, and then I just shared with him, hey, I don't know what I want to do with my life. I was thinking of doing property management because he had a property management company. He was like, dude, I can set you up with that and you can do it. But he's like, I really think you should do real estate. And so whenever he said that, I was like, deal. Like I'm going to do that. And so I started interning at a brokerage while I got my license. This is back in 2019. So, took me like 9 months. I like failed the exam twice. Again, just fumbled my way through life. Stumbled my way into passing the exam. And this is a side story. I failed it twice in DFW, so I drove all the way to Waco, and I was like, dude, if I don't pass this exam, this is gonna be the loneliest hour-long drive of my whole entire life. Luckily, I passed it, and so yeah, man, I think just the beginning of all that, how it came about is I shared where I was at in life. I shared some of the things going on internally with multiple people, and one of them stuck. And
Yeah.
kind of got me to where I'm at now.
So I've noticed a trend. It seems like real estate is a popular move for former pastors. That there's a lot of former pastors in real estate. Why do you think that is? What is it about pastors and either personality or skill set? Why do you think a lot of pastors go into real estate?
I think a couple things. One is funny, but it's also like true. And then I think a couple of them are like, just actually, I relate to them. I think first off, it's just money. Pastors get paid next to nothing.
Right.
Especially an associate youth pastor. I think my paycheck was like $700 every 2 weeks. And, you can calculate however much that is. But like, I think just the money side of it, to be able to have just some financial freedom, and real estate's a great avenue to obtain that. And I think also a lot of pastors probably get into it because they have like an ultimate dream, and if they need the finances to make that happen, if it's opening a coffee shop, opening some retail store, whatever it is, they need the money. And real estate is just a vehicle to get that money so that they can obtain that ultimate dream.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of them. I think the other one would be the people aspect. Just caring for people, helping people navigate through big decisions. Like I wouldn't say that I like disciple clients,
Right.
but I'm definitely there for them in a personal, vulnerable way, and what is probably the biggest purchase that anyone makes in their lifetime
Totally.
is a house. And so the pastoral element of that, I think, plays a huge part into why pastors kind of immediately go their eyes go towards real estate in some sort of fashion. At the same time, it's a extremely hard industry,
Yeah.
and I think if you're kind of in it, thinking you can be the vibes guy and the good and go lucky guy, it just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen. And it's for some people, not for others.
Yeah. When you were getting started, what was that like? Because to your point, it is a difficult industry. I think it does cater to highly relational people, but also there's a whole other world of negotiating and writing contracts and, finding, sourcing the right homes, kind of having your ear to the ground. Uh, What was it like for you starting off? Was that easy? Was that challenging?
It, man, it's never been easy. I'll say that. I think I've been so blessed, man, and I'm so thankful to God of how because I started in like January of 2020.
Oh wow.
So craziness of
Totally.
where the world was at that point with the pandemic approaching. So in the time, it all kind of timed out perfectly for me to be able to kind of have a rapid route to
Yeah.
being successful in real estate, whatever that means. Um, but man, I think the biggest hurdle, and maybe you felt this in your career too, post pastoral job, um, is getting it out of my mind that I was just the youth pastor guy.
Mm.
So I remember a big fear of mine was like, dude, all these people who can afford homes, I'm not helping youth ministry kids buy houses. Like their parents,
Right.
if anything. And I'm like,
Yeah.
there's no way that they're going to be able to see me past like youth pastor guy. And so for
Interesting.
the first couple months, my mindset was like, I don't know if this is going to work out. I think people are just, if I can't even see myself past this youth pastor person, then, sure as hell, these other actual clients and prospects
Totally.
won't be able to, as well. So I remember my broker in it was sitting me down. He's straight up, like, I didn't even tell him I was feeling that. He just straight up said, man, you have to build confidence. He's like, you're not just the youth pastor guy. He's like,
Mm.
you're a Christian Fussell. You're a professional real estate agent. You're a businessman. You own your business, and like you make shit happen.
Yeah.
And I remember hearing that, and it just takes time for that belief to actually set into your mind and heart. And that was another huge thing as well for me, was just the mental side of it. I just couldn't get out of my own way.
Yeah.
And I think a common theme for my life is I just allow other people to speak into my life
Mm.
and give wisdom, give advice, to a fault in some way, honestly.
Yeah.
But I'm just so open and receptive to if it's feedback or opinions or wisdom. And man, that's just helped me so much throughout my whole entire life.
Hey, y'all, really quick, if you are a pastor who is thinking about transitioning from the ministry to the marketplace, I personally know how daunting that can be, which is exactly why I created the Marketable Framework. The Marketable Framework is an online course that walks you through the 4 things that you need to successfully transition careers. So we talk about what to write on your resume, how to communicate your value to people who have no clue what you do, how to network, everything in between. And so, as a thank you for watching this, we want to offer you 15% off the course. So if you go to marketableframework.com and use code podcast, you'll get 15% off the course. So again, that's marketableframework.com. Use code podcast to get 15% off the course. Now back to the show. Does that go the opposite way too? Like if someone says something negative or is critical, do you how do you receive that? Because I also know a part of your story is there was a guy who told you that you weren't going to make it, right? That you weren't going to
Yeah.
last. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I was behind the barista bar for 6 to 9 months while I still had my real estate license.
Yeah.
Um, and God's so funny. It's like my first transaction was Will Perry, who
Okay.
I went up to the night after I got let go. He was the first client that I helped. The second one was another barista and his wife, a white rhino. And the third one was this kid who I discipled through high school. It was his dad. And so it's like, man, I definitely am blessed in that way. That was a side tangent. To your question, I was behind the bar and there was this guy who came in. I think his name's Mike, and he was just successful. I could just tell by his energy, honestly. And he told me what he did. He's a banker, yada yada. So I told him I was getting my real estate license, and he was like, "Hey, you should, we should get coffee. I'd love to, love to talk about it." And I was like, "Yeah, I'd love that." So he made me email him, and so it took me a couple days. I emailed him this long email asking him to coffee. He said, "Let's do this time." So we sit down at White Rhino, the coffee shop that I'm working at the point, and it was just a weird thing. He was like opened up with like, "Hey man, your email was too long. Asking for coffee, like, with business professionals, you should just get straight to the point and not add any fluff." And then we were just talking about real estate. I was telling him kind of my goals and my dreams with it. And he goes, "It just takes a specific kind of person to get into real estate. And, I'm not sure if you have it." And he was kind of like laughing during it. But then he goes, I probably give you a year or so, and then I think you'll find the next thing. And, dude, I remember writing that down.
Like somewhat unsolicited in his.
Yeah, dude, I don't even know the guy's last name straight up. So I didn't know he couldn't speak into my life like that. But he said that, and I remember kind of having that like Michael Jordan moment of like, "Oh, this person said this about me. I'm going to do everything I can to prove them wrong." Yeah. And so I remember whenever I made it like 2 years in the business, and I didn't work hard just because that was one.
Right.
Instant, like I'm not a psychopath, but it definitely didn't motivate me. And so I remember I got in the business for 2 years, and I wrote him a personal letter letting him know that I made it 2 years. And this was chachi, but I like wrote down how many transactions I did in 2 years. And so anyways, that's the negative thing in it. But I think like it can go both ways on people speaking into your life. It's just filtering it through discernment and wisdom of, this Mike guy's random. Yeah. I met him. I had a coffee with him once. I've never seen him or talked to him since. This Will Perry guy has been in my life since I was 16. So like 15 years. I'm going to listen to that guy, and I'm going to ask for wisdom from that guy. I'll listen to this other, this Mike guy. But I'm going to really, really try to apply with this person who knows me. I'm going to try to apply that to my life.
Dude, that's so good. Because I do feel like, especially in the career transition phase, it's such a vulnerable spot. And it's an emotional spot too. Like when you have no income coming in and you're trying to figure out, I need to do something, right? There are so many voices speaking into. I mean, I remember I had so many random job offers, like security guard to like working in sales and all this other stuff, and I was like, those seem like two very different paths. But but there's a party that's like, I just need a job, and so being able to really discern what is wisdom and what is just advice from random people who may or may not know you,
Totally. And dude,
I think that's huge.
They probably, like, for the most part, I think they mean well, and like they're wanting to help. I just think that whenever you can't listen to everybody. Yeah. You can listen to everybody, you can't follow everybody. And so I think for me, to my fault is I feel like I definitely am the people pleasing side. So I tend to feel like I have to do this and that for this person, and then this and that for this person. And I think as I've gotten older now, in the late 20s, and now I'm 30, like I just know the people that I want to speak into my life.
Yeah.
And I'm really gonna go to them whenever I'm going through something.
Totally. Okay, finish this sentence for me. If I'm a pastor thinking about going into real estate, I should not go into real estate if.
You want to preach? I'm kidding. I would say if if you're not willing to sacrifice a mass amount of time.
Mm.
Like I and that sounds so cliche, but it's so
No.
true. Like I've this year I've gone on more vacations than I had, and I'm like entering in my fifth full year of real estate. This year I've gone on more vacations than I have the previous probably 3 to 4 years combined.
Wow.
And that's just because I had my head down. Like, man, sending contracts back at 10 p.m. or negotiating until 10 p.m., texting clients until 11 p.m., early morning phone calls, driving anywhere that someone would let me be like, let me help them buy a house at. If it's in Waxahachie, Texas, Alito, or Anna, Texas, up near freaking Oklahoma, like, I would just say yes to everything. And it just took sacrifice of time, of driving, the mental side, like all of it. And so to finish that sentence, I would not get into real estate if you are not willing to sacrifice time. And yeah. Because I think at the end of the day, like I again fell into it in a perfect season of life. I'm a single dude, and I was single whenever I got into it. I don't have kids. I don't have a wife. Like there's definitely layers of, for some people it just is probably going to be hard to work out if like you just had a kid this year.
Right.
Just because you cannot sacrifice time, and you shouldn't. If you have a kid, you should not sacrifice time in their first year of life, a massive amount of time. So, yeah, I think that's what I would say is that if you're not willing to sacrifice a good amount of time to put into the business, because the first year, dude, it's hard, man. Like, I think the average is like it takes like 12 months to close your first deal.
Wow.
And so you're kind of going, to your point, without a paycheck for, in your head, an infinite amount of time. In reality, an unknown amount of time.
Right.
Like the paycheck is unknown of when it's going to come in, when is someone going to let me help them buy or sell a house. So, that just brings a mass amount of stress. And I think,
what is that like too? Because I can imagine that there are guys who think, okay, I think I have the chops. I think I have the drive. I think I have what it takes to be successful in real estate. But you're also in a position where your income can fluctuate. It's not a steady salaried position, which most ministry people are used to. You can sell a house. You can not sell a house for 3 months. You can sell 3 houses in a month, not sell a house for 6 months. That just kind of gauging that. What does that do to you? Like, do you have to have a certain type of personality to be able to handle the ups and downs of getting paid not consistently?
For sure, dude. I thought I had it. I don't even know if I have it, man. I got to freak out at least once a month with like, am I ever going to close a house? My mind goes from A to Z, and Z is like homeless with nothing, and I definitely, I have that freak out a couple times a month or two. Yeah, I mean, it's tough, dude. Like, if just statistic wise, I think that first off, there's like 80,000 real estate agents in DFW. Like, if I were to ask you how many agents you know, and you had 5 minutes to think, you could probably name 10 to 15 agents, And so, one, you're up against, it's a dog eat dog kind of shark-ish world and industry. So you have, and it's not overstimulation. What would it be? Like
a oversaturation.
Oversaturation, yes. Like the market's oversaturated with real estate agents.
Yeah.
So, and then I think the other stat is like the average real estate agent in DFW doesn't even close 12 deals a year. So that's already, you're getting into a business where it's almost guaranteed that you're going to have a couple months without a paycheck. So yeah, man, it's tough. Like, I don't think there is an answer for that. I think that if I were to give an answer of how to kind of put guidance on that fear of not having a paycheck for a month or two or whatever, is you just have to keep going, and you just have to, I really think you just have to make it past 2 years. Then business can become it can start to get fairly consistent. And as well, that's when you start to feel like you're you're kind of, you start to feel confidence
Yeah.
in real estate is after 2 years. And so if you can just make it 2 years, and if you have to fake it till you make it, if you have to have a second job, like whatever it is, if you just make it past that 2 year mark, you're already separated from a good amount of other agents.
Yeah. And just to back up a second, I think it's really easy to talk about the challenges of it. And man, this is like, don't do it if XYZ. But the reality is, you've been really successful. And there's a lot of former pastors who have been really successful in real estate. So would you say, on the whole, it is a good move, or it is a good industry to try to break into if you find yourself trying to figure out something new outside of pastoral ministry?
Totally, totally. I think it's definitely something that if you're getting out of ministry, or if you're in ministry and wanting to have a career change, and are able to do something while you still work at the church, I think real estate is an awesome. I don't know what other. I would say it's in the top three options. I don't know what the other two would be, but I would say it's definitely something that, if you're curious, I mean, I think it's like $800 or $900 to get your license, and so I think it's worth it, even if you have to renew your license after 2 years. So if you just close one deal in 2 years, it pays for your license and a lot more. And so, I would definitely recommend it to anyone who is looking for that career, from to shout out the dog, from ministry to the next thing, whatever that is.
Okay. Last question. I want you to think back to the moment that you found out that you were getting fired.
Yeah.
There's a lot of guys out there who are leaving ministry not by choice, but because someone is telling them that their time is up. What do you say to that person? What do you say to encourage the person who just found out that they got let go, they just got fired, and it feels like, oh my gosh, my calling, this world, the only thing that I've ever known, it's gone now. What do you say to encourage them?
Man, that is a beautiful question. Because I'm kind of thinking back and just trying to be like, what did people say to me, and two, what would I tell myself, however many years ago. I think it's situational for whatever the reason is, but what I would say to anybody is, dude, it's so cliche, but it's the thing of, you're gonna look back in a year from this moment of being let go and this chapter ending. You're gonna look back in a year, and you're gonna be in a completely different headspace, a completely different internal space, because like after that moment of getting let go, for me, I was just like, yo, what's going on? Like, it was a 180 in life. Like, life got flipped upside down. And so I was just like, man, is this how I'm going to feel forever? Am I ever going to get over this? This is what Will, my friend, again, I keep going back to him. This is what he said, is he was like, put an event in your calendar. And I titled it something along the lines of like, every year is growth. Like, if I look back on that time, I didn't really even know what the next day was going to look like. But the fact that someone was like, hey, it's day by day, this is going to be hard. But when you look back in a year, because you're going to make it a year, when you look back in a year, you're going to be a completely different person. And I think you can say that every year for anybody. Like,
right.
That wasn't the best answer. Clip that up in a certain way, but like, I would just look at someone and be like, man, I'm so sorry. I hate this for you. You feel like life just got flipped upside down. It's going to be a blessing in the long run, and God's going to build this new life for you that in a year, 2, 3 years from now, you're going to be so thankful for, to where you can possibly look back and say, man, that was one of the best things that ever happened to me in such a traumatic and low moment. That was one of the best things that ever happened to me.
That's awesome. Because I can imagine there's a lot of guys out there who feel like this is the worst thing that could ever happen, and
Yeah,
to come to the realization of, oh wow, this was actually the grace of God in my life, that God is using this to help me grow and change in a really positive way that might not have happened otherwise.
dude, 1,000,000%. That's you said it really good right there. Of like the mindset in that moment is this is the worst thing that has ever happened in my whole entire life, and man, like I'm however many years removed from that, from being a pastor and in ministry, like I can look back on it now and I can say that was one of the best things that happened to me in in my life, like the
Yeah.
changing of the trajectory of my life. And man, like I would say I'm probably in a better place. I'm not probably, I'm definitely in a better place spiritually, not working at the church, which is
Mm.
funny. Um, but I feel like I know God in a more personal way, and I've walked with Him, and He's walked with me through really hard things. And I don't think I would have gotten that if I would have just continued to climb the ladder of being in ministry and being an associate pastor, then being a pastor, and then planning a church and all the things. Like, um, yeah, man, yeah,
That's awesome. Well, dude, thank you so much for taking time. This has been so good. And I feel like your advice is so great for those who are like, dude, I don't know what to do. I might go real estate, I might not. But uh, man, I'm so happy that folks can hear all of your wisdom.
dude, thank you. And I already told you this before, but bro, I love that you are honing in on this thought of like of career change and then being specific within the church. I just think that especially this generation that is entering the marketplace and in the job space, man, they're all freaking out. Or most of them are freaking out because they were just told they had to do this and should do this, and they don't want to, and so they're trying to figure out is what is it that they want to do. And I think
Yeah.
it's even more so in the ministry space. So yeah, dude, I absolutely love this.
Thanks, dude.
Thanks for letting me talk.
Yeah, bro. I love it. Appreciate it.